Hey, my friends, it's Miss.Mandi, and I know that y'all haven't heard from me in a whole week, and I apologize for that. It has been a very busy week. As many of you know, my husband and I run Clare Springs Baptist Camp, and we have been having to make some pretty tough decisions on summer camp. So if you know me, you know that I absolutely love camp. I love every aspect of camp. I love the campfire, the s'mores, the kids getting together and singing, and the food and worship. But as you know, I also love to camp with my family. And we have done that in so many ways. We have gone in an RV, we have tent camped. We just love being outside. And so you may see my Smokey the Bear shirt. So some of you may not know, but Smokey the Bear is like, I always say my favorite, but like this is my favorite book, but Smokey the Bear is my favorite character. He reminds me so much of my childhood, like only you can prevent forest fires, and hearing that on. And so the other day I was in a store and saw this shirt, and yes, if not you, who? I was like, I have to have that because I have a Smokey the Bear sign, an antique, always be careful with fire, and this amazing Smokey Bear in the Campers book that I found at an antique shop years ago. It's a golden press book. This is a little golden book, and the copyright date is 1961 on this book. It has beautiful Smokey the Bear graphics, and so I'm going to read to y'all Smokey the Bear and the Campers. Just think, said Ernest Swift. Tomorrow night we'll be sleeping in a tent. And fishing and swimming, added his sister Mary. The Swift family were going on their first camping trip, and they were excited. Come on, children, help me load up the car, said Mr. Swift. Into the car went the rolled-up tent and the sleeping bags. Then came the pots and pans for cooking and all the food and warm, sturdy clothes. Don't forget your fishing rods, said Mr. Swift. And be sure to pack your bird guides, said Miss Swift. You'll be seeing lots of new birds. One of Swift's children's hobbies was looking for different kinds of birds. Ernest and Mary each had a long list of birds that they had seen. Brother Bubba would absolutely love that car. It's the same color as our Ford Fairlane we're working on. The next morning, the Swift family drove down Main Street on their way to Bear Spring Forest. Forest Ranger Bill Timmons waved to them as they passed the ranger station. Have a good time, he called, and mind your fires. The woods are dry this summer. So have you ever been to a national park and met a park ranger? We have. And I love that they take their job super serious and they know so much about the wilderness. Soon, the Swift family were in the woods. We have to find a campsite that has fresh water and shelter from the wind, said Mr. Swift. Just over the next hill, they came to a clearing. Through it rushed a fresh mountain stream that ebbed quietly into a deep pool. There were bushes all around. A perfect spot, said Mr. Swift. There'll be good fishing, too, and swimming, added Ernest. Mr. Swift put up the tent. Here, he said, giving each of the children a flat, thin stone. Dig a little trench around the tent. Then if it rains, we won't be flooded. As they were digging, Ernest saw a bobolink sitting in a tree. Go on, Bob, said Ernest. Fly away and see the world. Mr. Swift laughed. Keep digging, Ernest, he said. There'll be lots of time for bird watching. Next, Ernest and Mr. Swift went off to find dry wood for the fire. We'll make the fireplace, said Miss Swift. She and Mary found a space on the ground. Then they found some big stones and made a shelter for the fire. Soon it was blazing merrily, and there was a wonderful smell of cooking. I like campfire cooking, said Mary as she toasted another marshmallow. I love burnt marshmallows. That night, as the Swift family slept in their warm sleeping bags, animals from all over the forest came to see their visitors. Smokey Bear, head fire warden of all woods, stopped by to make sure that the Swift's campfire was out. And it was, for Mr. Swift had poured water on it and buried the ashes where it had been. Mr. Swift was a good camper. In the morning, Mr. and Miss Swift went fishing. We're going to look for birds, said Ernest. All right, but don't go further than the top of the hill, said Mr. Swift. You don't know the woods yet. We won't go far, said Mary. The children saw many birds, meadowlarks and woodpeckers, nuthatches and whippoorwills. Suddenly, Ernest saw a small, sooty-colored bird with a white throat. Look, he said, I think that's the bird our family is named after. I've seen his picture in my bird guide. Ernest was right. It was a white-throated swift. I'm in my office, so that's why you hear it phone ringing. Come on, said Ernest. I want to get a better look at that fellow. Remember what Pop said Mary. We're not to go past the hilltop. Hurry, said Ernest, scrambling up the hill. We'll lose him. The swift flew on, and the children followed him far over the hill and deep into the woods. The children grew hot and out of breath and finally lost sight of the bird. Let's go back and take a swim, said Mary. That's a good idea, said Ernest. Is this the way? They stopped and looked around. Golly, said Ernest slowly, I think we're lost. Ernest and Mary started to walk, but by the time the sun went down, they still hadn't found their camp. Mary drew closer to her big brother as it began to get dark. An owl hooted overhead, and they heard the eerie cry of a loon on a nearby lake. Ernest tried hard to feel brave. Then a friendly cinnamon-colored bear walked into the clearing. The children had been told to stay away from bears, but this was a very special bear. Howdy, kids. My name is Smokey, said the bear. What are you doing in the woods all alone? We're lost, said Mary. Said Smokey. I'll bet that's because you didn't listen to your father. I know where the Swift camp is, and I'll get you back in time for breakfast tomorrow. But first, I'll call the rangers and have them get word to your mother and father that you're safe, said Smokey. He took from his pack a field telephone and sent his message. Then Smokey led the children to a patch of wild blueberries. These blueberries are safe to eat, said Smokey, but never eat anything in the woods unless you are sure it's good. When you've had enough berries, gather some dry pine needles to sleep on. I'm going to start building a shelter. Smokey made a lean-to with pine boughs and fallen trees. What a sweet-smelling place to sleep, said Mary sleepily. Here's a bedtime treat, said Smokey when the children were ready for bed. He gave them each a piece of honeycomb. I carry little honey snacks with me when I go on my rounds. It gives me extra energy. Tell us what you do when you make your rounds, said Ernest. My job is to protect the forest against careless people, said Smokey. I sniff the air for smoke, climb the trees to look out for forest fires, and visit campsites to be sure that campers have put their fires out. It's a big job for one bear, but children like you can help me. How can we help you, Smokey? Said Mary. Smokey took a piece of paper from his pocket. Here are my rules for safe camping, he said. Learn them and teach them to your friends. You'll be helping to protect the woods we all love. So it says, be careful with matches. Don't play with matches or build fires for fun. Fires are dangerous for everyone. Be careful with campfires. Put the fire out. Don't leave one ash red. Then wet the ashes well to make sure the fire's dead. See how it rhymes? Helps you remember. Be careful with other fires. Burn paper and leaves when the wind isn't blowing, and watch that fire till not one spark is glowing. Be careful with smokes. Tell all the grown-ups, please, nevermore drop cigarettes or matches on the dry forest floor. The next morning, they were up early. When you are lost, said Smokey, try to find a stream and follow along it the way it is flowing. Streams always lead to ponds or lakes or rivers. Sooner or later, you'll find people. They walked for a long time, and at last they came to the top of a hill. Down below, they could see the Swifts' campsite. There's your camp, said Smokey. Goodbye, Ernest and Mary, and remember my fire safety rules. We sure will, said Ernest, and thank you for finding us. Later that afternoon, Mr. Swift took the children on a bird watching hike. Do people ever get lost in the woods and not get found? Asked Ernest. Oh, yes, they do sometimes, said Mr. Swift, when they go too far from camp and when they don't know all those rules that Smokey taught you. Just remember them. We will, said the children, and they did. So I hope that you enjoyed Smokey the Bear and the Campers. This summer, I hope that you get to go camping as a family. Your camp life may be a little bit different than what ours may look like this summer. And so, but the main thing is getting to be able to spend time with your family and just enjoying the time that you have and praising the Lord for every little thing that He's done, especially giving you the streams and the trees and the birds and all of nature for you to enjoy. And so I hope you enjoyed today's Smokey the Bear with Miss Mandi. I'll see you next time.